and welcome to Yarnspirations. I'm Mary Beth Temple for Hooked for Life, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Loopy Stripe Blanket made with Bernat Alize EZ. Now this is really nice soft yarn, and you can make this blanket if you have never knitted or crocheted before. All you need to do is follow the instructions and you can make a blanket for yourself. Take a moment to subscribe to the channel for fresh content weekly on knitting and crocheting and other crafts using this wonderful yarn. Let's take a look at the beginning. Okay, there's one stitch that you need to learn to make this project, and here it is. With main color, which is the gray or whatever color you chose, you're going to count out 75 loops for the foundation row, noting that the yarn end is at the far right and all the loops are facing upward. So of course I did not count out 75, I counted out 11 because 75 won't fit on camera. Working from left to right, pull the 76th loop from the working yarn up through the 75th loop, last loop of foundation row from behind to create a knit stitch. So, working yarn, if you don't know, is the yarn that is attached to the skein, and that's all of our yarn crafts. So I'm going to hold my working yarn in back of the foundation row, because that's where I want it to be. And it's okay if it's a little twisty. You don't have to go bananas sorting out every single one. I'm going to grab the loop of the foundation row that's closest to the working yarn and hold that straight. You don't want to twist these. You want to keep them nice and straight. And I'm going to grab that loop and pull it through this loop. And there is my first knit stitch. Now I can get rid of this pin or the stitch marker or whatever, because I don't need it anymore. So now I'm going to take each successive loop on the working yarn and pull it through the loop that's waiting for it below. And again, I want to make sure that I'm not twisting. So here's my next loop on the foundation row. Here's my next loop of working yarn going from the back to the front. Just pull it through, pull it all the way up. Next loop on the foundation row, next loop on the working yarn, pull it through and leave it, because the yarn has, and it's nice and fuzzy. It's not going to undo itself. It's not going to unravel itself. It's going to sit nice and wait for you to get there. So I'm going to do that all the way across. Now again, your first row is bigger than my first row. And here's my last one. Now, if you're nervous, it's okay to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But I can see I'm pretty good shape here. So now for the next row, I'm doing the same sort of mechanics. I'm bringing the loop from the working yarn up from behind through the loop of the row that I've just finished, but this time I'm working right to left, not left to right. So this is the only stitch that we are going to use in this pattern, so it's very simple, and it's definitely something you will get the hang of. You'll develop a rhythm to it after a couple of minutes. It does not, there's not a big barrier to learning how to do this. So the instructions will tell you to repeat the third and fourth row, which is basically this stitch going from left to right and this stitch going from right to left. And you also need to keep in mind the color pattern, which is 4 rows of gray and then 2 rows of the cream. And you're going to keep doing that 24 more times, so 25 times total, ending with 4 rows of main color. So you're going to keep going until you have 25 of the cream colored stripes. And then you're going to do the bind off, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So there's the end of my third row, and you can see the knit stitches developing. So once again, the fourth row, same stitch, just going that row, So I'm going to put a couple more rows in here so we have a bigger sample. I want to show you how to do the bind off, and I want to show you how to put the loops in the stripes. And one brief note, you will notice at the end of the fourth row, the way it's written, it's going to tell you to break main color and join A. All you need to do that is use your pair of scissors and trim it between the loops. Try not to cut a loop. Just trim it between the loops. Now my A color is broken. Pardon me, my main color is broken, and now all I'm going to do to start the next color is start the next color. There's not a lot of, crazy pants weaving in or knotting or tying or whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and start the next color. Let's take a brief look at the bind off. So when you have done your piece, the number of rows we suggest in the pattern or the length that you want, you're going to bind off. Now, it is told you that you're going to end after 4 rows of the main color so that the beginning of the blanket and the end of the blanket match. Now, for the bind off, you want to work in the same direction as the last row that you made. So my last row went this way. So my bind off is going to go this way. And in case you're confused, you want to end the bind off where you're still attached to the working yarn. So all we're going to do is take the first loop on the end, pull the second loop through the first loop. Now we're going to pull the third through the second, and the fourth through the third. And and see how the edge makes a nice, neat edge at the top? You're going to do this all the way across. So we're coming up to the working yarn. Now I need something to finish off this last loop. So before, when we were cutting the yarn, we were cutting between the loops. So I want to skip one loop, cut between the loops like we were doing. And now for this one time, I'm going to cut between the legs of the loop. So right in here, between its little legs, and I'm going to cut right there. And that gives me a yarn tail. So I'm going to take this tail, I'm going to put it up through that last loop. Well, I can do a couple of things here. I can tie a little knot. Or if you're already a knitter or crocheter and you're comfortable, you can just weave in the ends. I think that little knot's going to, and it's not going to show. It's not like a light fluffy yarn that you're going to have a big ugly knot in your work. So I like the knot to secure things. Then I'm going to turn around to the back of the work, and I'm just going to tuck the tail. I'm just going to tuck the tail in some other stitches so it's not, I don't want it flopping around like that. So I'm just going to grab sort of a random stitch, tuck it under there. Yeah, I might do that one more time. Find another random stitch. It could be next one down, next one up, and just tuck that little tail in so it's not flopping around. And that's all there is to the bind off. Now, to accentuate those cream colored stripes with the loops for texture, you're going to cut a strand of the A color that is 77 loops long. So that is the number of loops that you had, which is 75 plus 2. In my case, I had 11 stitches on my sample, so I cut mine to 13. So the number of loops you have plus 2. Cut first and last loop of strand to create a yarn tail at both ends, and that's exactly what we did a minute ago when we did the bind off. We're going to cut between the legs of the stitch, and that gives us our little yarn tail. We're going to do that on both sides. So now that I've cut 2, you may notice I have the exact number of loops on my strand as I have stitches in my row. Weave strand up through center of first loop along 5th row. So here's my first stitch in the cream color. So I'm going to pull the strand up through that. Pulling strand all the way through, so the first loop of the strand is centered. So I want to keep that tail in the back. Where's my first loop? There it is. So the first loop on the strand is centered at front of first loop of 5th row. Here it is. And the yarn tail extends beyond the edge of the blanket. Continue weaving strand down between loops and back up through the center of the next loop across the row. At the same time, making sure the next loop on the strand is centered and sticking out at front of the loop. So we brought this guy up, and now I'm going to take it down after one leg of the stitch. I'm going to take everything down. But I want to make sure that my loop that's supposed to stick out is sticking out right here where it belongs. So here is my next stitch. Here's both legs of the next stitch. I'm going to pull up. Again, you want to get everybody up, everybody in the pool, as they say on the cooking shows. But you want to make sure that you're not tugging the guy that you put previously. You want to make sure that you're not tugging him. So see, I have a loop on the back. That means I didn't get them all through. So now they're all through. So I'm going to take my strand after one leg of the stitch to get it back to the back. It's a lot easier to see in this direction. And see, now my loop is centered inside the stitch. It is centered between the legs of the stitch. Let's see that one last time. I'm going to find the stitch. There's the 2 legs of the stitch. I'm going to grab that tail and I'm going to bring that yarn up. I'm going to check the back up. See, not everybody's up. You want to really check the back and make sure everybody came to the front, or else you're going to run out of loops, and we don't want that to happen. Okay, go down between the stitches, go down after that one leg and leave one loop up on the right side of the work for decoration. So what you're going to do is you're going to do this technique every time. See, I pulled too hard and he went through? Just pull him back up. So every time you see a white row, you're going to cut a strand of these and put the loops on so that you have your loops equally spaced all the way up to the top of the blanket. And to finish it off, you're going to do what we did earlier, which is grab that little yarn tail, just weave them in and out of the stitches. I like to do it on the wrong side of the work, and I like to weave them in the same color. Like, I don't like to weave the cream in the gray because I think you can see that. I like to weave the cream in the cream. But just tuck it up and down a little bit. And as you use your blanket, which you're going to because it's so comfy and soft, if you see a tail sticking out after you launder it or after you've worn it for a while, just tuck it back in. Totally not a big deal. So that's all there is to the Bernat Alize EZ Loopy Stripe Blanket. I hope you had a wonderful time joining us. I'm Mary Beth Temple for Hooked for Life. Please subscribe to the channel for fresh content weekly on knitting, crocheting, other yarny stuff, and some more cool projects, even if you don't knit or crochet. Thanks so much, you guys. Bye-bye.